Welcome to Whisperer of Madness. If you're enjoying the story, consider liking the video and subscribing. It really helps grow the channel and this community. Commencing counterattack, it's too wasteful to use the Sun's child's bloodline for an ancient bloodline ignition experiment. Besides, the Ouroboros clan is about to wage a war against the allied forces of Jupiter's lightning. After that, I still need to look for body-tempering spell formations and explore the icy world. I need exceedingly powerful methods that can inspire terror. Leyland stroked his chin. With his current strength, he could escape from a radiant moon, but he had nothing that would be able to threaten them. Hence, he needed powerful, intimidating trump cards. Chem-in Serpent Transformation, being a Morning Star arcane art, was indeed one, but people would learn to counter it if he used it too often. Leyland was looking to prepare a few other killing techniques. Using a rank 6 bloodline to create a one-time bloodline imprint should be enough to threaten the life of a radiant moon, right? Leyland predicted, though it's a pity, there's no other choice. A bloodline imprint could be able to display the strength of certain ancient beings when they were at their peak. Even one attack at such strengths was frightening. In the past, Leyland could do nothing with the bloodline of the Sun's child even if he had these thoughts. Now, however, not only had he risen to the peak of Morning Star and gotten a huge boost in strength, he had also gained control over the Phoenix Flames, which could rival this sun's flames. For that reason, creating a bloodline imprint was a real possibility. Let's begin. Leyland watched the golden flaming sun at the heart of the secret room and took a deep breath. Dense, demonic black flames were emitted from his palms and burst forth in the form of a thin thread. The creation of the bloodline imprint took a few days. When Gilbert and the rest in the Magus tower outside were beginning to get impatient, Leyland appeared before them. They could feel something was different about him, but Gilbert and the others could not pinpoint it. I've made my decision. Gather the army, and we shall begin reclaiming our lost territory. Leyland wore a platinum Magus robe and had on white gloves. His temperament was full of dignity, and upon hearing his declaration, multiple Ouroboros clan warlocks began to cheer. They had been waiting for this day for far too long. After showing himself and setting the hearts of everyone at ease, Leyland sent Gilbert and the rest away and took off his gloves. Observing the back of his hands, his face could not hide the ecstasy he was feeling. Complicated runes in the form of a sun occupied the backs of both his hands. The outermost layer was a ring of black flames, as if a seal to store the power of the sun in his hands. With the support from the AI chip and the suppression from the Phoenix Flames, I finally molded the bloodline of the Sun's child into a bloodline imprint. Leyland paid close attention to the bloodline imprints. After a long while, he sighed deeply and wore the gloves once again. I didn't expect for the blood to be sufficient to form 2 imprints, and I can even feel that fire plume is nourishing these imprints on my hands, altering them in some way. They seem to have been upgraded. If I were to activate this suddenly, even a rank 5 wouldn't be able to withstand the attack. Leyland's fire plume and the bloodline of the Sun's child had some mysterious response to each other, and the bloodline imprint's power was being nourished and amplified. The AI chip estimated that each of these 2 bloodline imprints was as strong as 2 all-out attacks from the ancient rank 6 Sun's child. With such a great killing technique with him, Leyland now had something to count on, and was utterly confident in waging this war. Greenflame City. This stronghold, which acted as the bridge between the Allied forces and Phosphorescent Swamp, was also a key strategic region for the Ouroboros clan. Since the Sky Legion had taken over this place, this stronghold had been in the hands of the Allied forces. Even the commoners there had accepted this fact. Gradually, after a few years, they had recovered from the fires of war before, and were now showing signs of prospering. No matter which Magus organization governs them, none would attack regular humans for no reason. Hence, their loyalty is not guaranteed. Practically all leaders will be easily accepted, or should I say, this is the survival instinct of people with low social status. Above Greenflame City, Leyland and a few other Morning Star warlocks stood in the air. Seeing the prosperous city, there was little they could say. The Ouroboros clan had occupied this area for thousands of years, but they never expected the people to react this way. We've never had much of an interest in this area. It's fine as long as they can provide a certain amount of provisions and materials, as well an annual influx of fresh blood. Gilbert stood aside, slightly red in the face. Oh well, At least, we won't have to feel bad about dragging them back into war once more." Emma sneered, eyes completely red. The news that the Allied forces had attacked the Ouroboros clan brazenly after she had disappeared had completely riled her up. The fury of a morning star could only be eased with fresh blood. "If you don't make a move, I'm going to do it." Emma watched Leyland and the others who had been invited, such as Paul, who were unmoving. Laughing coldly, her robes began to sway and make sounds with the breeze. "The flame elf of the immemorial times, please listen to my decree and descend, turning into a rain of flames." Emma chanted loudly as terrifying elemental particle emanated from her body like a black hole. Endless elemental tides formed a surging tsunami. A bit of red appeared in the sky, and it accumulated to form a layer of dense flaming clouds. Rank 4 spell Descent of the Heavenly Flames. Large amounts of flames streaked down like meteors, leaving splendid long tails as they descended upon Green Flame City. Soon enough, successive sounds of an explosion could be heard, and a large amount of black flames formed that spread everywhere. "Enemy attack! These energy undulations!" Morning Star. Within the residence of the city's mayor, a sentry yelled in disbelief at the data they had seen on the screen. At the same time, he hung his head, closed his eyes, and prayed, "Great Lord." Has the war between morning stars begun once again? He knew how terrifying wars between morning stars were. If Green Flame City was going to be the battlefield, none of the low-ranked magi like him would be able to escape. Just the stray spells and large amounts of horrifying radiation could easily take their measly lives. "Crap! The base of the airship forces." After praying, this alarm watcher suddenly recalled something, and his expression changed as he activated a secret imprint in his hands. "Hello, is this the base of the airships? This is the mayor's residence. This is a rank 4 warning. I repeat, this is a rank 4 warning. A morning star is attacking." No matter how much he shouted, there was no reaction from the imprint. Knowing things were bad, he darted out of the surveillance room and immediately saw the shower of flames. The violent sounds of explosions that accompanied them meant that the airship base stationed beside Green Flame City was now caught in the blazing flames. It's too late. He laughed bitterly, about to leave the battlefield. Rumble. Boiling hot meteoric flames fell and wrapped around him, the fierce flames burning violently. "Warning, warning, energy from the barrier has been consumed, unable to maintain energy defense." The piercing sounds of alerts could be heard everywhere in the base. There were panicked magi and technological staff everywhere, and the interior of the airship base was in chaos. Occasionally, a few airships would take flight, and would then be ruthlessly smacked to the ground by a few gigantic black arms, causing large sparks in the base. "These airships aren't half bad, but it's a pity they're useless to me." Leyland sighed, but his hands did not stop moving. Large black giant Chemian serpent figures streaked through the skies, absorbing life force without care. All enemies in the vicinity of these figures had their life force sucked up and turned into dry corpses, with not even a bit of moisture left within. The Ouroboros clan was unable to handle so many airships, and besides, arrangements after the war were going to be very troublesome. Leyland could not be bothered to wrangle with the morning stars over this, and found it simpler to just obliterate the fleet. "Stop!" Such unbridled actions immediately gave rise to the fury of other magi. A streak of blue light shot out and appeared before Leyland and the others, revealing the figure of a young Magus. The undulations of a morning star were also being emanated from this young Magus body. From his bright eyes that had seen through the ways of the world, there was now merely rage. However, after seeing Leyland, Paul, and the others, which came up to 6 morning stars working together, his pupils shrank slightly, and fear appeared on his face. "Duke Farlier, are you planning on destroying the peace treaty from before?" Leyland knew this Magus. He was one of the morning stars that had besieged Ouroboros clan, and was one of the leaders of the organizations that depended on Jupiter's lightning. Of course, to the current Leyland, he was as weak as an ant. "Peace treaty? HMPH, that was just a temporary armistice." Emma took a step forward. A snake-shaped spore landed in Green Flame City below. Bang. The spore clung onto the body of a Magus, and fear was apparent on his face as many warts appeared on his body. Bang, bang, bang. Seconds later, the warts broke open, and even more spores flew out. In a short period of time, the entire Green Flame City had sunk into an abyss of suffering. "You!" The Morning Star Magus was anxious but did not raise his hand. With 6 Morning Star Warlocks here, he would be the one in trouble the moment he made a move. Hence, he could only glare at Emma with hatred. His Highness from Jupiter's lightning will not let you off. I'll wait. Leyland chuckled and stepped forward while he continued the conversation. Of course, in the eyes of outsiders, he had gone completely insane. Even with 3 Chem-In dukes joining hands, as well as support from the Warlock Union, it was naive to think they'd be able to challenge a radiant moon. This morning star began to snicker but immediately realized something was odd. Only Leyland out of all the warlocks here has recently advanced. It's understandable if he doesn't understand the gap between them, but how can Gilbert and the others not know the power of a real radiant moon? Why do they look so relaxed? Retrieving land, every Magus possessed knowledge and wisdom that far surpassed that of ordinary men. How could any such person knowingly provoke a rank 5? There were only 2 ways that such a thing would happen. They were either absolutely confident in victory, or had a trump card that guaranteed them their lives. Though this morning star couldn't guess what trump card Leyland and the rest had, he could tell that the situation today was not in his favor. All right. Give me 5 minutes and I'll order all my magi to withdraw. I'll leave Greenflame City to you, he relented, albeit grudgingly. The city and territory were all small matters to him. His magi were what truly mattered, and he did not hesitate to make this choice even if he was unwilling. There's no need for that. Whatever the Ouroboros clan lost, we will retrieve it with our own strength. Gilbert shook his head and rejected the other party's suggestion. Also, even if it's you, whoever dares offend our Ouroboros clan will need to pay the price, Leyland added from the core of the group of warlocks. What? The enemy Morning Star Magus was enraged. The nerve! You dare threaten me! He had been infuriated. Morning Star Magi lorded over the central continent. With their Morning Star arcane arts, they had trump cards capable of taking their opponents down with them, and they'd thus developed a pride rooted in the belief that they were unrivaled. He acknowledged that he had been defeated, and taking the initiative and withdrawing was already giving his opponent face. However, the warlocks of the Ouroboros clan wanted him to pay a price. Lunatics! You bunch of Chem-In warlocks are all lunatics. The Morning Star's expression turned frosty. If he knew of Leyland's previous battle achievements, he wouldn't dare say things like this. Now, however, the Magus was determined to teach Leyland a lesson, and terrifying elemental energy gathered on his body as rings of light formed one after the other. Morning Star arcane art, Paul and the others exclaimed in shock. That's right. Since you don't know what's good for you, then let this area be completely destroyed. The Morning Star Magus yelled maniacally. If a Morning Star were to disregard everything, the Ouroboros clan's territory would be ruined. Stand down. Let me do this. Unexpectedly, the warlocks opposing him had not withdrawn from his threats. Instead, Leyland had stepped out. A mere newly advanced Morning Star is going to stop me. This Morning Star suddenly had the urge to laugh. Soon enough, though, this smile turned stiff. HSSSSS. Along with large amounts of demonic black flames, the giant phantom of a serpent appeared behind Leyland's back. This large serpent was quite similar to the giant Chem-In serpent of the Ouroboros clan, but there were red patterns on the scales and large amounts of black flames twining around its body. It was as if it was wreathed in a layer of flaming armor. A force field even more terrifying than those of ancient rank 4 beings spread out, covering him. Crack! The rings of light broke, and the energy of this Morning Star Magus, point mass, began to seep out and enter the black flames. Wah, what monster is this? The Morning Star Magus expression changed, regret filling his mind. He now knew that this newly advanced Morning Star was the most terrifying of this group of warlocks. HSSSS! The huge serpent snarled and devoured the Morning Star. Rumble, air shook and created shockwaves. Gilbert, Emma, and the rest shot glances at each other and began to stabilize the space around them. Whoosh. Moment later, a blue figure escaped from the giant phantom serpent, making a strange sound as he fled pitifully. Leyland stood quietly where he was, not even a wrinkle in his clothes or a strand of stray hair jutting out. He did not proceed to give chase. Why did you let him go? Gilbert and Emma asked. They knew it was intentional on Leyland's part. After all, they had personally seen his prowess. Our goal right now is to regain our territory. Now isn't the time to start wars with others. Battles between Morning Stars would attract the attention of Breaking Dawn monarchs. Leyland shook his head. Besides, the injuries to his body will take a few hundred years to heal. There's no need to take notice of him in the future. It had to be said that Leyland was very meticulous in some matters. Gilbert and Emma looked to give him their approval. Leyland, you're so amazing. Goodness, that was a morning star. Philip was gaping. He had to admit that what he had seen today was just too amazing, and something rarely seen even in his long life. Leyland could actually forcefully suppress a Magus by interrupting them while they were performing their morning star arcane art. He had even gravely injured his opponent and was confident in killing them. This was not a strength that belonged to rank 4s. It was the might that only great rank 5 magi possessed. Leyland, your grace, have you advanced to rank 5 already? Paul asked a question that Gilbert and Emma wanted to inquire about as well. Of course not. Leyland shook his head, but that only gave Paul the feeling that he was enigmatic and unmeasurable. All right, since the morning star has already been chased off, Green Flame City shall return to the arms of our Ouroboros clan. Gilbert said a few words to a secret imprint, and soon enough troops formed of multiple high-ranked warlocks arrived at the place. Having already been attacked by a rank 4 spell, and seeing their morning star flee in defeat, the high-ranked magi of the enemy had no plans of fighting on. Teleportation portals flashed and people flew away as they fled. Green Flame City returned to the Warlock's control in less than an hour. I remember that this place once belonged to the Mare family, right? Emma spoke, implying something. Yes. As the Mare family did not guard their territory properly, I suggest we reduce their land and take Green Flame City, giving it to other bloodline nobility. Gilbert immediately spoke. This was a reshuffling of power. With Leyland's powerful, abrupt rise, as well as the fall of the original First Elder, there were definitely conflicts of interest when it came to the allocation of benefits. The war was a perfect excuse to make changes to this. Leyland stood silently at the side, not seeming to have any intentions of seizing power. However, even outsiders like Paul and Philip could tell that most of the territories that were being reclaimed would definitely be placed under Leyland's Farlier family and Freya's Blood Serpent family. After the war, the Blood Serpent and Farlier families would immediately rise in power. There was no doubt about that. All right, let's get to the next area. Once all affairs at Green Flame City were taken care of, a few warlocks immediately continued on a new journey. With Leyland along with Gilbert and Emma as support, the organizations that relied on Jupiter's lightning and had merely 1 or 2 morning star magi were swept through. While Philip and Paul did not do anything, just their presence represented the stance of the Warlock Union. Even rank 5 magi had to reconsider the consequences. Hence, the front lines were pushed forward smoothly. In less than a month, all the land that had been occupied had returned to the high-ranked warlocks of the Ouroboros clan. Of course, there were naturally changes when it came to allocation, but no warlock dared complain. Ha! Onyx Castle, I'm back. Leyland stood above Onyx Castle in his territory and was speechless. The Magus Tower not far away had long since been overturned by the Oakhart family. Of course, they had immediately compensated Leyland with a brand new Morning Star Magus Tower. The Onyx Castle below had obviously been destroyed and reconstructed. That must have been the Oakhart family trying to curry favor with him since they were already here. Are you very familiar with the Azure Mountain King? The moment you arrived, he immediately withdrew his troops and even looked impatient in doing it. I just have something on him, so we're temporary allies. Leyland shook his head and chuckled. Temporary. Emma observed Leyland's profound smile, suddenly feeling like the breeze in the skies was slightly chilly. She began to mourn for the Oakhart family. News has come in that the Green Snake Marshes have been taken back. Our Ouroboros clan has now regained all its past territory. Gilbert's figure appeared by Leyland's side, a sigh in his tone. What should we do next? Nothing. Just work on consolidating our original territories. Leyland knew when to stop. Though he did not know if it was his existence or the intimidation of the Warlock Union, Jupiter's lightning had displayed a high degree of tolerance towards the Ouroboros clan's recent activities and practically did not interfere at all. This was also why Leyland and the rest had been able to reclaim their territories so quickly. Of course, Leyland did not believe that they were afraid of him or the Union. Zegna probably had something more important to focus on, which was why he was temporarily enduring his activities. As long as he killed Leyland, the Ouroboros clan would quickly fall apart even if they took up half of the central continent. Leyland always had his guard up against this radiant moon. The Ouroboros clan has completely expelled our organizations and restored their territories. In the lava world, Wade has brought a group of high-ranked warlocks and is going around annihilating the Mobius organization. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Leyland, Wade. One day, I'll bury your skulls under my palace's steps and have your souls wailing within the flames of my lights. Zegna's eyes were bloodshot as he sent the reporting Morning Star Magus away. Recently, all that was being delivered to him was bad news. Wade had actually gotten the coordinates to the lava world, bringing a whole group and vying for territory with him. His previous actions had lost him his friendship with Scarlet Eye, and Archibald had become hostile with him after this matter as well. While Zegna was in terrible shape worrying over these, Leyland had meanwhile reclaimed all the territory that had once belonged to the Ouroboros clan. Hand of lamentation. It's all your fault, Narsha. Didn't you say that as long as we make use of the lava world's coordinates as a trap, we can get rid of them and make them disappear into a spatial rift? You said nobody would know. The moon rune on Zegna's forehead dimmed as he narrowed his eyes. How would I know that 3 Morning Star warlocks, when teamed up, were as powerful as a radiant moon Magus? The mysterious female voice sounded like that of a spoilt little girl. Are you calling me useless? Veins surfaced on Zegna's forehead. What? How could I do such a thing? You're my student after all. The little girl's voice was suddenly replaced by a mature one. All we have is a trade, an exchange of benefits. Zegna was breathing heavily as he stated this fact. All right, I know what you want. Wade is fighting you over the lava world and Leyland is challenging your might in the central continent. But all this does not matter. As long as we succeed in our plan, you can advance to Breaking Dawn and become a king. Even wiping out the entire Warlock Union would be a piece of cake, let alone just them. Her voice was very gentle and extremely easy to be caught into it. With the comforting words from the female voice, Zegna gathered his composure and returned to a dark secret chamber in his Magus tower. Passing through layers of restrictions, one would find nothing in the room except a circular fountain in the center. A large amount of turbulent black air was boiling within it, and a few expressionless, pale human faces were floating on the surface. Woo-woo! A little white stream of air rose up, before forming into a few tall human figures that moved slowly around Zegna. How is it? I spent all my treasures for this, and even... Zegna's voice lowered. It's looking good. The Pond of Lamentation configuration is almost complete. All that's left is a few last steps. The female voice turned a little cold. Beep. Reserves of the sun's child bloodline imprint strengthened. Beep. Host's fire elemental resistance has increased. Along with the timely prompts from the AI chip, Leyland's mind wandered off for a bit as he stared at the sun-shaped runes on the back of his hands. I prepared this specially for Zegna, but he didn't even show up. Leyland had to admit that he hadn't predicted the opponent's reaction. Zegna was a narrow-minded villain, but he had remained composed under such provocation. This was out of Leyland's expectations. Or maybe someone else persuaded him not to act. Leyland stroked his chin. If that's the case, it must be someone holding a prestigious status in Jupiter's lightning. Which one is it? It's better like this anyway. We got back all our territory, and I didn't even have to use one of my bloodline imprints. These bloodline imprints were almost as strong as rank 6 spells. They were definitely a trump card of Leyland's, and it was best that he continued to hide them. Also, Leyland could feel that the bloodline imprint in his skin resonated with the modified fire plume, and they complemented each other. With the passage of time, this resonance became more and more obvious. Could it be that the ancient sun's child was related to the phoenix? Leyland dismissed his own thought with a laugh. Mentor. These are all the documents related to the body tempering in the Ouroboros clan. The door to the study opened, and Snoopy entered with tons of black documents and crystal ball recordings. All the documents had been piled up on Leyland's desk, forming a small hill. Great job! Leyland nodded his head in encouragement to this handy student of this. He sent him off as he started on the documents. There were many different types of recording apparatus in the Magus world, and they came in different shapes, sizes, and materials. Books made of real paper were very scarce. In fact, Leyland had even seen a book made entirely out of bronze before, as well as books made of bone. After all, the Ouroboros clan was one of the top organizations in the central continent, and the very first thing Leyland had thought of after browsing through the documents was to find a way to improve his vitality. The side effects of the massive increase in his soul force had yet to be resolved. Moreover, judging from his current health, there were very few spells and refining methods that would be of use to him. Leyland casually flipped open a thick dictionary-like book. On the pale yellowish page was a brightly colored rose, the leaves and petals seeming to tremble a bit. "Ah, dearest Trivish, I adore you, adore your eyes which are so pearl-like," and as he flipped through a huge amount of mixed content, he found what seemed to be like short lines left behind by a bored bard. The phrasing was poor and the text somewhat incoherent. Yet, Leyland browsed through the thing without much thought. He placed his fingers on a piece of paper with raised markings on it, gently sliding across every letter. It was then that something bizarre happened. A line of fire appeared at the part Leyland touched, and the rest of the letters started to twitch. There were even little black feet growing on them as they started to rearrange themselves. The following text contains information on the initial stages of the reformation of hodo worms. Only official magi and above can attempt to. Another instructional line appeared, and the AI chip sounded at the same time. Beep. Object letting out inductive radiation detected. Based on the activity rate of the detected radiation, it can be transferred into the host's vitality. Probability, 0.0000000001%. Leyland closed the book, feeling rather speechless. Such hidden techniques and methods of induction could only be created by those at rank 3 and above. Rank 1 or 2 magi who practiced this would have their vitality stimulated and would begin to improve. However, such a thing was way too weak for Leyland. Reform through hodo worms, there's a maximum increase of 3 vitality and added resistance against poison. Leyland's eyes glowed blue as he stroked his chin, but the new look would be simply too ugly. And it's useless for me currently anyway. He shook his head and moved on to the next source. With his position in the Ouroboros clan, he could use any resources he wanted. He'd finished browsing through all the documents in a few days. No other Magus would have been able to accomplish much after one quick browse through. They would have to spend time to understand and memorize the information. Unlike them, however, all the information was now in Leyland's memory, never to be forgotten. AI chip, scan through the new data and look for methods that can improve my current vitality, Leyland ordered. Not only had he looked through all the documents about body refinement spell formations, he had also organized all the rumors and legends that related to improvements in vitality, giving it all to the AI chip to analyze. Even though he did not have much faith in the Ouroboros clan's library, just a few clues were good enough for him. Beep, search complete, found 3 methods that suit the host. Along with its report, the AI chip projected some information into Leyland's mind. 1. Conversion into a Dafork will result in a one-time increase of 40 vitality. 2. Acquire the title of Virtuous Sky Sage and come in contact with the Endowing Scepter. Will assist in advancement of host's physical strength by 2 ranks at once. 3. Consume the giant dragon potion together with Hades' blood sacrifice. Will result in an approximate increase of 10 vitality. These were the 3 methods the AI chip had found, the methods most suited to Leyland himself. Of course, they were deduced from rumors and scientific content. Leyland would have to do his own work to get all the resources required to proceed with them. Even so, it was much better for him than for those magi who were clueless when they encountered problems, having to try all methods one by one. Conversion of a Dafork. Where on earth am I going to find such an ancient spell formation for the conversion of vitality? Leyland smiled bitterly. Let's leave that aside for now. As for becoming a virtuous sky sage, he muttered as he touched his chin, sinking deep into thought. The Sky Castle was under the control of the monarch of the skies, but it was open to all scholars. The title of Virtuous Sky Sage was an honorary title in that place. For strictness of the Magi, those were able to get the titles were all the masters of the scholars. Coming into contact with the Endowing Scepter would be the benefit of the entitlements. Rumors had it that it could increase Magus's physique without any side effects. Of course, with the help of the AI chip, Leyland was quite confident in passing the tests. However, the Sky Castle was located in a monarch's territory, and he was not sure of the attitude of the monarch of the skies held towards bloodline warlocks. Hence, he wasn't confident in that plan. As for the last thing, the giant dragon potion and Hades' blood sacrifice are quite simple to get. I can use a bunch of kobolds to refine some dragon blood, And I also have a spell formation for Hades' blood sacrifice. Leyland's eyes flickered with light. The increase is a little on the low end, but it's good enough. He had finally realized how hard it was for Magi to advance. His vitality was already great as a warlock, and he still faced so many difficulties in advancement. Imagine how hard it would be for Morning Star Magi. There were probably many Magi stuck in the Morning Star realm due to a stagnation in their soul force and vitality. Let's do this for now. I'll prepare the giant dragon potion, use it to increase my vitality, then proceed to the Sky Castle. Leyland had made up his mind. Giant dragon potion, Leyland. Gilbert and Emma had come over while Leyland was deep in thought. Their eyes were twinkling with joy. What's this? You've acquired an interest in body tempering. Emma had immediately made the connection after glancing at the mess of materials on the table. My soul has strengthened too much recently, and my physical body hasn't been able to keep up. Leyland nodded. This wasn't any information worth hiding after all. Seriously, Gilbert sat down speechlessly. Us bloodline warlocks have the advantage of increased vitality due to our inheritance of ancient genes. We're ahead of Magi in this field, and normally we only have to worry about how to increase our soul force. There are practically no other people in your situation. Leyland's monstrous growth rate was something Gilbert found difficult to digest. Leyland laughed and asked the two dukes some other questions about body tempering. However, both of them knew even less than he did, and could hardly give him any useful information. In the end, Leyland could only ask, "How much do you know about Sky City?" "What? Don't tell me you're going there." Both warlocks stood up in shock. "Why, what's the matter?" Leyland asked with a smile. The endowing scepter kept in Sky City was a treasure that only virtuous sky sages could come in contact with, and it had the ability to increase his physique by 2 levels without any side effects. To the present Leyland, that was a huge temptation. 2 levels was roughly 20 points of vitality. With the additional 10 points from the giant dragon potion, his vitality would grow very close to 100 points. The remainder could be increased slowly through fire plume or multi-limb strength. Therefore, if he couldn't find other methods to substitute for it, he had to go through with this. After a moment of silence, Emma spoke. "Leyland, even though the monarch of the skies hasn't targeted warlocks before, you know the situation with our warlock union. Due to unknown reasons, bloodline warlocks had been rejected and were treated as enemies by the regular Magi of the central continent. They had even reached the verge of extinction. Despite the tremendous efforts of the few Radiant Moon warlocks, most warlocks still felt quite unsafe. This was why the Morning Star area had come up. If the monarchs hadn't given the suppression of warlocks their tacit approval, this would have been impossible. In Emma's eyes, Leyland was an up-and-coming talent who she had high expectations for, even someone who she considered a son-in-law. She naturally wouldn't want Leyland to leave and expose himself to danger. "Mentor Gilbert, what do you think?" Leyland could only laugh wryly inside, his eyes focusing on Gilbert. "Let's not talk about the monarch of the skies. Sky City is a holy land for Magi in the central continent and is considered the palace of truth. Countless top-grade masters, artisans, and scholars gather there, calling it the cradle of knowledge. In terms of innovations and advancements in spells, rapid progress is made every single day." Gilbert scratched his bald head, recalling some fond memories from the past as his eyes shimmered. "If you hadn't already become a Morning Star warlock and the pillar that's propping up our Ouroboros clan, my very first recommendation would be to go to Sky City if you intend to travel across the continent. If this is the case, I'm even more interested in going there." Leyland stroked his chin, yearning evident in his expression. "All right then, but you have to be extra careful. It's best to hide your true identity." Gilbert and Emma smiled wryly at each other. They knew Leyland well enough. He was the stubborn type, and now that he had already made his own decision, he would not change his mind easily. He just wanted to listen to their suggestions. "I know." Leyland crossed his arms, leaning slightly forward. "Well then, is there any reason for you to come all the way here now?" "Oh yes, of course. We'd even forgotten about that." Gilbert slapped his forehead. He passed Leyland a recording crystal. "After a month of hard fighting, we have finally regained all our territory. This is the new map we've drawn out." Leyland sent his soul force into the crystal and immediately perceived a giant map. Different colors were used to divide the regions that belonged to the different bloodline nobles. Compared to the previous map, there was not much of a change on the whole, but much of the nobles' territories had been greatly modified. Primarily, the territory that belonged to the nobles under the previous First Elder's wings had been greatly reduced, reallocated instead to the Blood Serpent family, and more significantly the Farlier family. On the whole, both the Duke's rights and benefits remain the same as before, while I get a hold of the territory and resources that originally belonged to the First Elder. Leyland pondered over this in his mind, though on the surface just nodded. I think this is fine. Let's go with this redistributed map. Only after Leyland agreed to this redistribution did Gilbert and Emma feel as if a weight had been lifted off their shoulders. After all, Leyland was far too crucial to the Ouroboros clan, and if he was dissatisfied with the distribution and left the clan, they would be in deep trouble. Leyland laughed and shook his head as he saw both of these senior, Morning Star warlocks in fear and trepidation before him. Master. I've captured a third batch of kobold warlocks and placed them in the binding room. Tanasha bowed to Leyland as she reported. This Magus, who was currently wearing a black dress, had afforded him even more respect since his advancement. She had become very cautious with her work as well. At Leyland's command, she had captured large numbers of kobold warlocks in the blink of an eye. Good job. Leyland knew exactly what she wanted. He laid lazily on the couch, waving his right hand slightly. A demonic dark flame formed on her forehead, leaving behind a distinct brand in the shape of a black snake. HSS, HSS. Surrounding the snake were hazy flames. The snake looked as if it was alive, about to break through the thin membrane of skin at any moment. Master! Tanasha knelt down in trepidation. She could feel terrifying power from the mark, enough to crush her into powder. This is my secret imprint and is representative of me. I've also stored within a one-time attack from my own hands. Normal morning stars won't be able to withstand it. Leyland closed his eyes slightly as he spoke slowly. In the meanwhile, Tanasha was thrilled by his words. I once promised you at Quicksand Castle that once I was strong enough and not afraid of retaliation, I would grant you your vengeance. Indeed, this was the reason that Tanasha had chosen to serve under him. Yes, Master, it's just that I never thought this time would come so soon. Tanasha sounded a little unsteady. Leyland's rate of advancement was far beyond her expectations. The family that you are going to take revenge on has no morning star. I have also talked to their backing organization, and they won't get in your way. You should be able to handle everything. The secret imprint I've left on you is your last resort. Thank you, Master. Tanasha's choked as she sobbed, her eyes red as the memories of her being harmed and chased after came up. It was still extremely vivid in her mind, how she'd even have to hide in the wilderness to survive. Go! Leyland waved his hand, and Tanasha exited respectfully. After exiting the Magus Tower, Tanasha felt the secret imprint on her forehead, especially the immense power within it, and her eyes glinted with strength. How have you been, Dove? I will be back soon. Most would think Tanasha and this Dove were very good friends from her words, but they would be frightened upon looking at the terrifying expression on her face. Deeply buried hatred that hasn't dissipated over time. It's instead fermented and grown. After Tanasha left, Leyland stood up slowly and announced something that sounded like a prophecy. He had a feeling that Tanasha's trip back would be accompanied by a great amount of bloodshed and pain. The misery of being forced to leave home and the experience of hiding for survival was enough to turn Tanasha into a terrifying goddess of vengeance. But the history between them didn't matter to him. No matter what had happened, Leyland would surely side with Tanasha, and for a very simple reason. He had no relationship with the other party, whereas Tanasha was his subordinate. Leyland had always favored people of his own. He followed his own set of rules and would definitely side with his own people if they were engaged in conflict with outsiders. Were Freya to fight his subordinates, for example, he would support her. But in case the two of them fell out, he would choose to protect his own benefits. His personal benefits was in the core of his set of rules. The closer an external circle of benefits was to the center, the more priority it received. As for fairness, justice, to things like that, haha, Tower Genie. Begin the modulation of kobold warlocks based on the bloodline operation sequence I had entered earlier on. Take now, for instance. Leyland's interests were in conflict with those of the kobolds, so he would not hesitate to sacrifice them. Beep. First stage of modulation beginning. Increase in activity of bloodline. The Tower Genie's voice sounded. Meanwhile, sounds of mournful cries could be heard from the multiple cages under the Magus Tower. After days of experiments, Leyland held a purplish-red bloodline potion in a test tube. his face filled with satisfaction. Even though there were some failures in between, the giant dragon potion is finally ready. Vitality and formation, Leyland had tremendous achievements in potioneering, to the extent that he'd even surpassed the realm of grandmasters, reaching a higher level. Even though the giant dragon potion was rare and difficult to make even during ancient times, it was only a matter of trial and error for Leyland. Even these few failures were not due to his technique, but because experiments were prone to failure themselves. Since the giant dragon potion is done, I can begin now. Leyland took a glance at the surroundings. It was a huge public square located in the Morning Star Magus Tower, created with the help of the tower genie. On the ground were complex designs and magic runes, and even vicious totem images. Surrounding the entire spell formation were 4 gigantic pillars, every single stone pillar the thickness of 3 men combined. Above them was something like a huge hollow tunnel. It seemed to be split open by sharp weapons, full of a wild ancient aura. Hades' blood sacrifice spell formation progressed 99.9999%. The AI chip responded after scanning through. Hades' spell formation, what an affinity between us, Leyland laughed. Hades was one of the most terrifying dark magi of ancient myth. His level of dark magic was said to be unreachable, and rumor had it that he had even completely grasped the rules of death. He possessed eternal youth and was full of desire for flesh and souls. But of course, Hades was nothing more than a super powerful dark magus in the eyes of Leyland and other magi, and some even looked up to Hades as a motivational target and tried to surpass him. When Leyland was trying to advance to rank 2, he had made use of the opponent's spell formation to harvest spirits. Of course, the current blood spell formation was a few levels higher than the one back then. It could even absorb the sacrificial offering's bloodlines by force in order to increase the Morning Star Magus's vitality. Leyland took a look at his current status. Leyland Farlier, rank 4 bloodline warlock, giant chem-in serpent, complete form, strength, 50 agility, 45 vitality, 65 spiritual force, 956.8 magic power, 956 magic power in synchronization with spiritual force, soul force. I have more than enough spiritual force, but vitality is so hard to increase. Leyland smiled wryly. This was the side effect for his sudden, huge advancements recently. Moreover, if his vitality still could not reach 100, it would be a huge problem once the multi-limb seal was broken. Begin! Leyland's eyes shimmered with crimson light. Crack, crack. Under the manipulation of the tower genie, the entire square started shaking, and grieved howls could be heard from a near distance. That was the morning of the strengthened kobold warlocks. After the bloodline extraction, these creatures were being treated as waste material and processed by Leyland. Waves of a terrifying aura rose continuously within the spell formation. Once the morning of the kobolds weakened, the whole spell formation started to change. The 4 gigantic stone pillars surrounding the square began to shake. From the tunnel up above, a huge amount of sticky liquid that was blood red in color dripped down. Mixed in were white objects that looked like crushed bones. The red liquid first filled the pillars to the brink, before it slowly spilled out like blood flowing in veins, causing the pillars to turn crimson. The liquid flowed all the way down, finally reaching the runes of the spell formation. The concentrated blood-red liquid filled the runes in order. The entire process was full of a certain solemnity, and the stagnant atmosphere was stifling. The spell formation kicked into action, and an enormous layer of crimson light shot up from the runes. Under the attraction of the crimson light rays, the vacant void above the spell formation was broken. Light took on the form of symbols seen in sacrificial rites, as it began to radiate waves of summoning. Awoo! Asterisk, the phantom of a monstrous 2-headed wolf hovered in the sky above the spell formation, howling ferociously. Greed filled its green eyes as saliva dripped down its jaws. I've never seen such a summoning technique before. Is it a summoning from a foreign world or from a different time and space? Leyland's eyes flashed blue. He had ordered the AI chip to record the scene down into his database for future use. Awoo! The 2-headed wolf did not start to feast on the pulp of flesh, bones, and blood immediately. Instead, it turned to Leyland, a ferocious look in its eyes as it glared at him as if he was one of the offerings. It has a certain level of intelligence. Could it be a clone of Hades? Leyland stroked his chin, started as he sized up this 2-headed wolf. This carefree behavior of Leyland greatly irritated the phantom as it howled and aimed to pounce onto Leyland. SSSS, a malevolent phantom of the giant Chemian serpent, this one with crimson scales, appeared behind Leyland and bared its jaws at the wolf. A magnificent aura emanated from the Chemian serpent, causing the wolf to waver. The summoning of a creature from another world is indeed troublesome, Leyland snorted, started to activate a spell. Rumble. Eye-piercing white flashes of lightning struck the phantom, causing it to howl as it lost some of its dark form. After the lightning passed, each of the two wolf heads now had a collar on, with spikes that faced the neck. The two-headed wolf was threatened by the spikes and dared not rebel. It then dashed into the crimson light before starting to feast on the flesh hungrily. The formation grew silent except for the bone-chilling munching noises. After a few minutes, the flesh and light inside the spell formation were both devoured by the two-headed wolf. It then roared to the sky, the sound waves traveling far and wide as it howled loudly. The spell formation started to warp once more under these terrifying howls. Starlight shone down through the Magus tower, revealing the image of a bright moon. Under the howls of the wolf, the moon gradually turned red before it stretched into the sides and formed the shape of a human eye. An icy gaze swept across, causing Leyland to shudder in fear. He felt as if he had called upon a disaster and his body tensed up. This pressuring aura must surely belong to a high-leveled Magus. Leyland inhaled deeply. Fortunately, the crimson eye did not fix its gaze on him. Instead, it only spared him a short glance and focused on the two-headed wolf. An eerie scene formed as the two-headed wolf howled continuously under the gaze of the crimson moon eye. Pop! The sound of a bubble bursting was followed by a crisp, explosive sound, and the phenomenal sights in the area disappeared without a trace. The two-headed wolf, the full moon and the starlight suddenly seemed to be an illusion, and a tinge of purple light twirled around the spell formation. Conscient of greed from a foreign world has been attracted. Summoning of ancient Hades' phantom is complete. A notification from the AI chip sounded, reminding Leyland that what he had seen just now was not a hallucination. Phew! What a weird spell formation. Hades, the king of the ancient dark magi, is truly a powerful elite. Leyland let out a long breath and stepped into the spell formation. Boom! The rumbling of the formation acted like a signal, and a huge amount of purple light converged on Leyland as it entered his body. Arg! Leyland let out a stuffy groan and started to spasm. After the purple light rays entered his body, they started wriggling like earthworms. This feeling was indescribable. If not for his superb vitality and great endurance, he would have passed out or even died due to the pain. The giant dragon potion. Leyland kept himself composed, using the purplish red medicine which he had long since prepared in his hand. Pow! There seemed to be a chemical reaction when the potion entered his stomach, and the amount of pain increased tenfold. Leyland's vision turned pitch black, but he managed to persevere through it with his strong will. Beep! Host is undergoing Hades' sacrificial rites, muscle fiber strengthening in process. Beep! Host is absorbing quintessential materials, vitality increased. Beep! Giant dragon potion has taken effect. Radiation is creating the best environment for absorption. The notifications from the AI chip sounded continuously. After the last wave of pain had passed, Leyland felt a stream of boiling heat gushing all over his body. Beep! Host vitality increasing, currently at 66.7, 67.5, 68.3, 69.9. The value showing Leyland's vitality kept on increasing in the AI chip's database and surpassed 70 within a split second before continuing on. 71, 72, 73, 74, 74.5. In almost an instant, the number had rocketed up by 10. It only stopped upon reaching 74.9. Leyland straightened his body after the effects of the potion passed, and crackling sounds rang throughout it. Host data changed, readjusting. Leyland took a look at his stats and discovered a huge change in them. Leyland Farlier, rank 4 bloodline warlock. Chem-in serpent complete form strength, 50 agility, 45 vitality, 74.9 spiritual force, 956.8 magic power, 956 magic power in synchronization with spiritual force, soul force. Vitality had increased by 9.9 units, pretty close to the estimated data from the AI chip. Leyland nodded in satisfaction. Right now, he had reached a monstrous value in terms of his vitality. Setting off an apprehension based on Leyland's understanding, vitality represented defense as well as regenerative abilities. His value of 74.9 was very close to the terrifying numbers that ancient creatures possessed. With his current body, regular rank 1 and 2 spells could not break through his defenses. Even rank 3 spells would only give him tiny injuries, and he would recover instantly. His frightening vitality gave him an equally terrifying healing ability. After checking everything once over, Leyland nodded in satisfaction. With the strength of my body, even if the seal of multi-limb strength suddenly gives way, I can still hold on for a period of time. Next, if I can gain the title of a virtuous sky sage and receive the blessing from the endowing scepter, I'll be able to solve the issue of the repercussions from having my soul force rise too rapidly. Leyland had to go to Sky City no matter what. Though that was the territory of the monarch of the skies, and a warlock like him going alone could be troublesome, it was already the simplest method that the AI chip could come up with. Techniques and body tempering spell formations that could increase the vitality of morning stars was very rare in the central continent. On top of that, Leyland's strong foundation as a warlock made things more difficult. The AI chip had summed up all of Leyland's knowledge and used the Ouroboros clan's large database to find these 3 methods. They were already the best out there. However, Leyland had yet to find any clues on the transformation spell formation in Adafork, and only knew it was in some ruins in the central continent from a legend. To him, taking the risk to explore ruins was too troublesome and dangerous. He had already used the 3rd method, and could not repeat it within a short period. If he tried, leave alone getting results, he would only face possible side effects. Hence, the most reasonable choice to make was the 2nd. He would head for Sky City and the endowing scepter. Of course, Leyland was rather confident in his travels. He was a peak morning star and could escape with his life even if he met with a radiant moon Magus. The 2 bloodline imprints from the bloodline of the sun's child gave him more than enough confidence. Sky City was the home to the monarch of the skies. He did not wish for there to be a rank 6 battle at that place. Besides, I haven't provoked the monarch of the skies at all. I just have to be careful of Jupiter's lightning. Leyland stroked his chin and sank into deep thought. A few days later, in the area surrounding Phosphorescent Swamp, a completely black private airship that looked like a water droplet soared into the skies. In just a few minutes, it disappeared into the horizon. Atop high towers, countless figures stared at the floating airship in a daze until it disappeared. "Relax, Freya." Emma patted the back of Freya's hands, looking at her lovingly. "Leyland is now comparable to a rank 5 warlock. He'll be fine." "Indeed, Leyland is very powerful. We just have to do our duty here at the Ouroboros clan," Gilbert consoled her. "Your graces are right." Freya bowed slightly, the concern in her eyes still not completely gone. After all, Leyland was going to the territory of a monarch. What if something happened? Freya did not dare think further. "Ha! Ever since little Freya got married, she doesn't listen to her mentor." Emma grabbed Freya's hands and began to repeat, "You don't have to care about other things right now. What's most important is to spread the bloodline of the Farlier family. Leyland has a lot of secrets on him, and his giant Chemian serpent bloodline is the best I've seen." "No. It's the best Chemian bloodline. If you don't spread it, it'll be a true waste." "Mentor, what are you saying?" Freya protested coquettishly, 2 attractive flushes of red rising in her cheeks. Yet that had eased her worry. Bang! The colossal serpent parted the clouds and shook off the winds, breaking through the troposphere and reaching a higher part of the sky. One could see intense sunlight shining down through the glass windows. Below was a seemingly boundless white sea of clouds, the scenery incomparably beautiful. The private airship was very quick, but it was not obvious from the scenery, which seemed to be still. After he finished setting up the automatic navigation system, Leyland sat alone on the sofa with red wine in his hands as he watched the scenery on both sides through the windows. He looked on absent-mindedly. A long while later, he sighed. "I'm not treating Freya well." Ever since Leyland had returned from the lava world, he had extremely busy with reclaiming territory and contacting other bloodline organizations. He had basically given Freya the cold shoulder. Now, he was going on a solo journey to Sky City. Though Freya had been strong and not displayed it, Leyland could feel her worry as she sent him off. Whatever it was, Leyland would definitely not bring her along. He was going to take a risk here, and this was no holiday. If he were alone, it would be easier to escape, but if he had someone else around, things would get difficult. I'll make it up to her in the future. Thinking this through, Leyland focused on other things. AI chip, how much longer till I reach Sky City? Beep. Based on the speed of giant serpent, estimated time of arrival, 45 days, 13 hours, 46 minutes, 19 seconds. The AI chip loyally intoned. That's really quite far. If not for me having my personal airship, it might have been even more troublesome. Leyland was speechless. If it required such a long time with the speed of his personal airship, it was quite obvious how vast the central continent was. This is a great time to meditate. Besides, there are still some more improvements to be made to the fusion of the Fireplume and Chem-In's pupil. Leyland sunk deep into thought, eyes glowing a blue that was indicative of the workings of the AI chip. Numbers, letters, and runes from different worlds were processed by the AI chip. The AI chip operated continuously, calculating and deducing information, forming a wondrous cycle of numbers. Within a hidden Magus tower. This was a Magus tower constructed by a radiant moon, filled with black thunder and lightning. It gave off a dark atmosphere that would cause one's heart to palpitate. These flashes of lightning constantly flickered around, causing the Magi walking along the passageway to break out in cold sweat. The feeling of this area really gives me the chills. The morning star who spoke was one of Jupiter's lightning. After the incident during the Holy Solar Festival, Wade had brought along a group of high-ranked warlocks to attack them. The Mobius organization lost time and time again in the lava world, and quite a few morning stars were either killed or heavily injured. This led to a lack of manpower in Jupiter's lightning. At such a critical time, the leader of Jupiter's lightning, the great radiant moon Magus Zegna, had suddenly announced he was going to seclude himself in meditation, which had given rise to protests and confusion. Of course, that was only in the hearts of his subordinates. Those that would dare oppose Zegna overtly had been turned to ashes hundreds of years ago. Passing through the alley, the morning star Magus arrived at a bronze door. The uneasiness he felt had reached its peak. "Your Highness, this is Loki seeking an audience," he transmitted after a momentary silence. "Come in," Zegna's voice was heard. It was the same old voice, but there was something oddly jarring about it. While wondering about it on the inside, Loki showed the utmost respect as he bowed and entered. Behind the large brass door was a giant secret room. The walls were full of binding and summoning runes, as well energy isolation spell patterns. At the heart of the room was a large pool where streams of black gas surged, producing bubbling sounds. Zegna stood by the pool, clad in black and gold. His eyes were fixed on the current of the black gas. "Your Highness," Loki bowed, watching the pool with some curiosity. This was what had caused his uneasiness. Yet he would not dare to ask Zegna about it. He did not even have the guts to probe it with his soul force. "What is it? You even used the emergency communicator to contact me." Zegna's hands were behind his back, but Loki knew that this meant His Highness was beginning to be enraged. If his next words were unsatisfactory, he would be in trouble. "Your Highness had put me in charge of information about the Ouroboros clan, and in particular the warlock named Farlier. I've acquired some intelligence." Zegna was paying close attention to Leyland, and hence he turned back to stare at Loki. "Speak." "Leyland of the Ouroboros clan left Phosphorescent Swamp yesterday. His destination is most likely Sky City," Loki hastily reported, but strangely enough, Zegna merely listened quietly and did not do anything special. "Your Highness!" Loki raised his head and saw the dazed look on Zegna's face. There were a few distorted spirit bodies hovering around him, pale, crooked palms grabbing at his collar. Loki felt his heart lurch, but after sneaking another glance at Zegna, everything seemed like it had been an illusion. This discovery had him sink deeper into fear. "Your Highness, do you need me?" Loki asked as he tried to sound out. "I'm conducting an exceptionally important spirit body experiment. I'll take care of Leyland myself. Don't bother with it anymore," Zegna answered coldly. "Yes, sir." Loki bowed once more and left. Only after leaving the Magus Tower did he let out a long sigh. He felt like his entire top half was drenched in sweat. His Highness, who had always been very enthusiastic about destroying the Ouroboros clan, had been reduced to this state. The scene just then even had Loki in shock. Could that just now have been? Conjectures and arrival within the Magus Tower's secret room, at the side of the Pond of Lamentation. The silent Zegna was in a daze, only turning back after he left and lifting up the sleeve on his right arm. On his right arm, crests and troughs formed on what should have been smooth skin, taking on the shape of a mysterious female face. What should we do about the Ouroboros clan? Zegna asked. Two cracks opened in the skin, rolling apart to form a vivid pair of eyes. You are now at the advanced stage of the transformation. Your main body will probably not be able to. The mysterious woman's voice sounded. You mean we should let go of this opportunity? Zegna raised his eyebrows. No, we. The woman's voice grew softer and was quickly concealed by the waves of water in the black pool. Above the troposphere, the large amounts of white clouds gathered to form a boundless white sea. A black streaking was soaring through this sea, a private airship with a smooth structure. Currently on its surface was a faint layer of defense, allowing the interior to be silent. Leyland sat cross-legged on a platform in the bedroom, a phantom Chemian serpent slowly taking form behind him. Light flickered on the phantom, causing it to seem illusory, and it looked more regal as fine red stripes appeared on it. Meditation was something Leyland did every day. Even though he'd already reached the peak of Morning Star, he would not set this task aside. After he absorbed a large amount of darkness and fire elemental particles, the phantom behind him shrunk down and entered his body. Whoosh! Leyland's eyes opened, and it seemed like large amounts of lightning streaked past the room. With the AI chip's optimization, the fusion between Fireplume and Chemian's pupil is now half a fold more effective than before. This was the most precise number he could come up with through his own personal experiments. Having a top-grade meditation technique such as the Wing of the Sun for reference, Leyland knew fully well that other than not having enough levels, Chemian's pupil was rather similar to a top-grade meditation technique. At this thought, Leyland could not help but focus on the AI chip. How is the progress on the 5th level of Chemian's pupil? Beep. 76.5% completed. The remaining path is being optimized. The AI chip's robotic voice intoned loyally. It seems like the 5th level will be completed soon. A hint of glee appeared on Leyland's expression. The bloodline shackles had ensured that no Chemian warlock had ever broken past the Morning Star realm. Hence, Chemian's pupil, which was specialized for his bloodline, only had 4 levels to it. This was a type of bloodline shackle. The meditation technique itself would hinder a Chemian warlock from breaking through. Now, Leyland could hope to destroy these shackles. The meditation technique may be just one part of them, but it had a hole in the bloodline shackles. Now, all he had to do was pry it open. Leyland believed that, one day, he would manage to break through these shackles as long as he persevered. Meditation techniques are only one tiny aspect of the warlock's bloodline shackles. The fundamental issue is still the bloodline, as well as restrictions on the spirit. At this thought, Leyland turned gloomy. Though he was confident in his future, that did not mean he thought the troubles ahead of him were easy to deal with. The limit of a giant Chemian serpent is rank 4. I, who have fused with its blood and soul, am now bound to rank 4 as well. The limits imposed by a bloodline would extend to the soul once one reached the Morning Star realm. This was the true issue of the bloodline shackles. The soul was just too complicated. Even Morning Stars could only graze the surface in researching it. How do I break through the restrictions on the soul? Leyland touched his chin. Do I have to begin experimentation on synthesizing and altering bloodlines? Leyland, equipped with large amounts of information from the ancient quicksand organization, was no stranger to all this. He also had much experience under his belt. Leyland was perhaps the only one in the central continent in altering giant Chemian serpent bloodline or form a new one. However, artificially constructed bloodlines always have defects. They are less lively in comparison to those that have gone through the order of survival of the fittest, shaped by nature and history. This was the disadvantage of artificially made products. The only other option was if Leyland was willing to expend much time and weight, allowing the formed bloodline to grow in nature for up to several tens of generations and slowly ripen. However, the amount of time required far exceeded Leyland's lifespan. Besides, though altering bloodlines could result in the creation of more powerful types of bloodlines, the chances of failure were equally high. Leyland was not going to gamble on his future. Hence, this very attractive train of thought lingered in Leyland's mind but was eventually abandoned. If this doesn't work, I can only rely on the plan the ancient wisdom tree came up with. It's a pity. At my level, I can't use it yet. A deep wrinkle appeared on Leyland's forehead. In terms of just intelligence and knowledge, it was impossible for him to measure up to the wisdom tree which had lived since time immemorial. He knew that its suggestion was definitely viable. The AI chip had also performed many simulations and verified its feasibility. It was a pity that these plans were still far away for Leyland. His current strength was insufficient for him to carry them out. Besides, the method it gave me can take care of this issue once and for all. If I use it now, the effects definitely won't be as good as me employing it in the future. I must use it as a trump card because this might be the only thing I can count on when I meet the Snake Dowager. Leyland's eyes glinted. Perhaps my ideas were wrong from the start. Rather than finding other forces to contaminate the bloodline, I should focus on developing my own bloodline. I might even get some results from that. Leyland made up his mind. Beep. Reached vicinity of Sky City. Arrival in 1H, 24 min, 13s. The AI chip prompted. A month has already passed. Leyland was puzzled, but then looked through the time records the AI chip had created and could not help but burst out in laughter as he shook his head. I've long since heard that high-ranked magi have experiments that go on for years or even decades. When they come out, nothing will seem to have changed, but that would be untrue. I never expected to find myself in this situation. Just meditating a few times and going through a few conjectures and proofs on experiments had time passing so quickly. To outsiders, magi possessed great strength as well as an enviably long life. Even rank 1 and 2 magi could live for hundreds of years, which seemed endless. However, Leyland knew that their time was short, much too short. Besides meditating, they had to conduct experiments and embark on explorations. Each incident of these could take up decades, even centuries. Hence, even after reaching rank 4 and acquiring a lifespan of over 1,000 years, he still felt that there wasn't enough time. This is why so many magi transform into undeads or become spirit bodies. However, that's merely struggling at death's door. The body cannot do anything about the death of its soul, and there will be huge side effects, even going so far as the degeneration of their intelligence. Leyland could not help but shiver at that thought. Even if he was at the end of his lifespan anyway, he would not choose to use this method. While he could live for a longer period of time, the price to pay for that would be becoming slow-witted, a fool or lunatic. He would rather return to the astral plane with a clear mind. Buzz. At this moment, the colossal serpent began to tilt upwards. Am I finally there? Sky City, the holy land of the Magi of the central continent, said to be the cradle of truth and knowledge. Anticipation glinted in Leyland's eyes as he walked to the deck of the airship. The great wind and atmospheric pressure did not affect the defense of the colossal serpent at all. Leyland, who was inside, felt nothing. At this moment, the head of the airship tilted further, climbing upwards rapidly. From the troposphere where the weather was peaceful, he had broken through the stratosphere, arriving even higher than that. Beep. Air pressure around host has dropped, oxygen supply dwindling. The AI chip prompted. Hee, not yet. Leyland shook his head, and the colossal serpent became a flaming arrow as it began to shoot up almost vertically. 80 km altitude, 200 km, 500 km. The AI chip rapidly refreshed its prompts. If I was in another world, I'd probably have broken through the warm layer and arrived above the ionosphere, right? Leyland looked at the AI chip curiously. He noticed that besides the strange reduction in temperature and a change in the behavior of ions, there were no other changes. No, Leyland looked up. He did not see a universe, but just the sky from before. However, the sunlight seemed more vast and dazzling. The Magus world it just a world amongst many others. It naturally can't be the same as in my previous world. Leyland seemed to mock himself as he laughed. At this moment, dark clouds appeared above the colossal serpent, as if shrouding the whole sky. When he got closer, he realized that these gigantic dark clouds even had lightning snakes within, thunder booming constantly inside. The thunder layer of Akov, Sky City's first line of defense, Leyland chuckled, piloting the colossal serpent and charging straight in. Whoosh! The lightning seemed to be enraged and struck downwards suddenly. Floating City, the multiple bolts of lightning twined together, converging into a giant lightning serpent. There even seemed to be a hologram behind it, as it faced the unwanted guest that had just entered its lightning zone. BZZ. Sparks flew madly on the surface of the colossal serpent, and the original defensive layer began to deform, seemingly unable to endure further. Emergency alert! The strength of each lightning bolt is above 300 degrees. Leyland touched his chin. An attack strength of 300 degrees was rare even amongst rank 3 magi. Even crystal phase magi would find it difficult to take on the combination of the lightning storm and the atmosphere. Other than morning star magi, Perhaps only a fleet of tens of rank 3 magi could gain entry using the airship's defenses augmented by a continuous supply of magic crystals and potions. This had caused tickets into Sky City to become immensely expensive, enough to make official magi go broke. If not for caring little for this meager source of income, Morning Star Magi could earn quite a lot of money if they took charge of these airships. Leyland thought indifferently. Of course, Morning Star Magi were exceedingly rich and cared little for such a meager profit. In addition, their arrogance would not allow them to do something like this. Leyland was not staying idle right now. A terrifying soul force emanated from this body, wrapping the colossal serpent within it. Buzz. With the support of soul force, the colossal serpent's defensive membrane immediately stabilized and was now reinforced with another thick layer. It was now like a solid black crystal. The deck of the colossal serpent, that had been shuddering all this while, was now as solid as a mountain. That was not all. Tiny black flames clung to the energy defense. The lightning could not even reach the colossal serpent itself and was instead absorbed by these flames. In fact, the colossal serpent's energy reserves grew rapidly. The black flames seemed to form a pathway in the air, not allowing any lightning to strike in its path. The colossal serpent was then free to move as it liked, the lightning no longer daring to attack. "Oh!" Leyland scanned an area and chuckled. The colossal serpent turned into a black streak as he quickly left. Ha! A long while after the colossal serpent disappeared, the clouds dissipated to reveal an elemental sprite whose lower body was covered by a spiral of unlimited lightning elemental particles. What a terrifying human! Only now did it dare mutter to itself, a tremble in its voice. He'd long since found me. Just his gaze alone was paralyzing. Even the earlier morning stars haven't given me this feeling. Could he be a great radiant moon Magus? This lightning elemental sprite with a body of lightning energy particles shuddered as it looked in the direction Leyland had departed, eyes full of fear. Boom! The black clouds parted as a similarly black streak flew across the skies, with black flames trailing behind as it left a magnificent path in the air. Ha! So this is Sky City, the airborne holy land of the Magi. Leyland observed a large floating city from the deck in amazement. This city was constructed on a hemispherical island. The city itself was massive, glowing with light from all types of spells. Once in a while, a few ant-like black dots would move in the distant horizon. With Leyland's sight, he could tell that they were no ants, but magic airships that were bigger than even the most gigantic cruises in his previous world. In comparison to the floating city, these large airships appeared to be tiny. And to think I still knew that Sky City was afloat. Pictures and words can't describe the mind-blowing nature of this view. As the colossal serpent approached it, the city seemed to grow even larger. A faint golden light rose from the heart of the city, seeming to create a holy radiance in the sky. Peace and harmony, what a beautiful city! Even Leyland could not help but sing its praises right now. Beep! The colossal serpent has received a communication request. The AI chip sounded. The floating city had obviously discovered the communication devices on Leyland's personal airship. As expected of something from the Faller family, they'd tampered with the airship. Leyland's eyes flashed coldly. While he had known of this, he had allowed it because it made communications easier, which did not go past his bottom line. Leyland had intentionally used the colossal serpent to come here. If he were to sneak in alone, who would discover him? Through the communications channel, a polite and humble voice was heard. Airship number DKGW 1394. Distinguished Duke Farlier, welcome to Sky City. Please follow our guiding airship and park at the private port we've allocated. Leyland agreed, and the colossal serpent began to slow down while following the mentioned route before it stopped. Meanwhile, in the command room somewhere in Sky City, things were in chaos. Morning star undulations detected, determined to be at 4 stars. No issues with the colossal serpent. Chem-In Duke Farlier is confirmed to be inside. Information was flashed through red warning lights and many staff members gaped at the gigantic airship. The figures working the deck felt faint. A morning star has come to visit us. Why were we not notified earlier? A burly middle-aged man shouted as he barged in after bursting through the door. He looked panicked as he snarled. Do you know who he is? He's the most powerful Chem-In warlock in history, the one who killed demon hunter Cyril. It's Duke Leyland Farlier. If this kind of person flares up at us for how we receive him, we're finished. Immediately after, he looked at the red warning alarm and couldn't help but hold his head in his hands, feeling the desire to end his life there and then. 4-star undulations, the upper tier of Morning Star. Gods, just let me die. Morning Star Magi were a rarity in the central continent, and there were naturally no clear methods of classifying them. They were normally classified based on their reputation and battle achievements, among others. As the Holy Land of Magi, Sky City was the most advanced research center in the central continent. It had independently come up with a standard to measure the strength of a morning star. They had divided morning stars into 5 levels represented by 5 stars, with a 1-star Magus being the weakest. A grade of 4 stars was already at the upper tier of morning stars, while 5 stars was the peak. Of course, since Leyland had intentionally hidden some of his strength, their detection was not accurate. However, even 4 stars was already terrifying. Most of the morning stars were around 1 to 3 stars. Morning stars at 4 stars or above were absolutely powerful, and even radiant moons would be apprehensive when up against them. Sky City might be called the Holy Land of Magi, but there were few morning stars of this caliber among their ranks. People like them in charge of the ports could not afford to offend him. Even if they were exposed to the radiations on his body, there would be massive casualties here. We've already sent out the signal and requested that he stop at the personal dock. He's accepted our guidance airship and is probably here with kind intentions. Golden-haired young man produced a handkerchief and wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead. What we need to do now is to report this news to the Sage Committee, and then all of us should welcome him. Oh, yes, you're right. Quick, report it in. While the Sage Committee, which controlled Sky City, had their own methods of detection, as their subordinates, they had to do their utmost as well. The burly man from before looked like he had just woken up as he snarled. What are you standing there like that for? Report it in and follow me to welcome him. No need for that. A white gold flash appeared in the control room. Lord Boffle, the staff of the control room, immediately bowed to the man. He comes with good intentions and doesn't want to act ostentatiously. I'll see to him myself. Go back to your posts and forget about this. The white gold light spoke and diverged into many rays of light. Good. With our morning star taking over, anything that happens next isn't our problem. The burly man sighed, hands behind his back as he left the control room. The other members in the control room looked relieved as they sat back down. The young man who had reported this earlier continued to work diligently, concealing the envy and feverish look in his eyes. Boom! The colossal serpent steadily descended atop a lawn with a large rune on it, not flipping up any dust. Is it Lord Leyland? Welcome. Due to the urgent message just now, there was no staff member around. A young man with platinum hair and wings of light similar to the wings of angels stood under the elevating platform of the airship. I am Leyland Farlier. You are. The door opened, and Leyland walked out, looking friendly. Though Gilbert had suggested that he sneak in and conceal his identity, Leyland wanted the title of a virtuous sky sage in Sky City, and he would need to make contact with the endowing scepter. He would definitely be interrogated thoroughly, and would even attract the attention of the monarch of the skies. How could he conceal himself? Hence, Leyland had chosen to step forward without any tricks. The title of a virtuous sky sage from Sky City was an honor open to all magi of the central continent, and large numbers of scholars would be attracted here. It was not shameful in any way that he wanted to obtain this. Lightwing, the title of virtuous sky sage, was an honor given by Sky City to top scholars. As long as magi had achievements in academics and were acknowledged by the Sage Committee, they could be awarded this title. Not only was it an honor to become a sage, there were benefits to it as well. Not only could they gain a bonus of 2 levels to their vitality from the endowing scepter, they also had the opportunity to join Sky City themselves. Even if they did not enter, the monarch of the skies would still protect them, and they would be able to move around the central continent without obstruction. Hence, whether it was for the fame, the benefits, or just to make up for their weaknesses in academics, large numbers of scholarly magi came here every year, which allowed Sky City to gain the good reputation of being the cradle of truth. Even if he couldn't pass, just gaining the favor of the monarch of the skies and being baptized by the endowing scepter once was no big issue. Leyland was now feeling very confident. The gift he had prepared would surely move rank 6 breaking dawn magi. How could the coordinates of another world not be enough? He'd never promised Wade not to give away the coordinates of the lava world to a third party anyway. It was attractive enough that the monarch of the skies could make an exception. He was just unsure if Wade and Zegna would cough up blood after finding out about this, which Magus would not take the secret of a world's coordinates to their grave. Only a freak like Leyland would actively go around, using it as a gift and giving it to others. Boffle, the person who had arrived, announced his name. As he began to judge the Magus opposite him, the first word that came to Boffle's mind was young. Whether it was his handsome face or the surging life force, everything gave him a sense of youth. Based on the rumors, Lord Leyland should be less than 300, yes. You've already become a morning star and gained such a huge reputation. Boffle observed this genius warlock. He wore gilded robes and gloves. His eyes were full of warmth and his smile was like the sunshine. With the crescent dangling from his earlobe, his handsome face was the type that young, teenaged girls or even female magi would go crazy over. So it's Lord Boffle. Leyland looked at this person, who seemed very similar to an angel, and had no idea how to react. However, the morning star radiation from his body was something that could not be imitated. The monarch of the skies held control of various organizations across the continent and had quite a few radiant moons under his wing. Obviously, the morning stars subordinate to him were much larger in number. Boffle here was one of them. Official magi could make modifications to their own bodies. By the time a Magus reached morning star, they were almost guaranteed to have something strange on their bodies. Presently, Leyland could not tell if the other party's shining wings were due to his bloodline or some sort of spell. The only way to confirm would be to run tests on him. Are you here as a representative of the Ouroboros clan, my lord? What is it that you require? Boffle asked after the greetings. This was a question that had been weighing on his mind for a while. He had heard of the Ouroboros clan's recent activities, as well as of their conflict with Jupiter's lightning. It was unlikely that Leyland would come out at such a crucial time for a holiday. I heard that the appraisal for virtuous sky sages is about to begin. I've come bearing the truth. Leyland did not conceal his motives. Appraisal? Boffle was dumbstruck. Never could he have expected that Leyland would actually be interested in this. The title of virtuous sky sage was only something that made it more convenient for scholars to travel across the continent. However, Leyland was already at Morning Star, which organization would not give him face. Benefits, honor, and the like were as fleeting as cobwebs to Morning Star magi. Perhaps the only thing they would regard with importance would be the baptism of the endowing scepter for them. The only thing that they regarded as important would be the baptizing through the adept scepter. An increase of almost 20 points in vitality was very attractive even to morning stars. The Sage Appraisal is a public selection of magi throughout the central continent. Am I not qualified? Leyland asked with a smile. Of course you are. Lord Leyland's presence is sure to make the appraisal more exciting than usual, Boffle answered without any hesitation. The Sage Appraisal had long since gained a reputation for its independence of factions and status. It held the unanimous approval of all of the central continent's magi, which was how it had become a holy land in the first place. It took in fresh blood all the time, and Boffle would be a fool to refuse Leyland. Hee. In that case, please follow me to the temporary villa we've prepared for you. You can organize the thesis that you wish to present as well as your experiments, and wait for the appraisal to begin. Boffle's invitation was enthusiastic. Though they were few in number, morning stars were known to attend the Sage Appraisal, and Sky City had its own policy on dealing with this. In general, as long as the magi who came forward did not break laws and had no restrictions placed on themselves, they could do as they wished and would need to be received warmly. Many thanks. Leyland did not reject Boffle's invitation. No matter where he went, he would be monitored anyway. He could just move into the place that had been specified, and he would be treated well too. My lord. A maid wearing a pure white silk gown was respectfully holding a towel and other items, waiting for Leyland's summon. This is a pretty good place. Leyland had on a loose white robe and was half reclining on a chair made of jade and stone. Within arm's reach were fine food and good liquor. He was now inside a gigantic white villa. The whole place seemed to be made entirely out of white marble, resulting in an aura of refined elegance. 3 fountains were placed next to Leyland, spurting out fragrant spring water. Outside was a flowering garden with a lawn. The lands of the villa were very expansive. And in Sky City, where every inch of land was extremely valuable, this was practically unbelievable. Of course, special privileges and preferential treatment were inevitable and only rightful when it came to morning stars. After bringing him to this area and instructing the staff inside to take care of him, Boffel left in a hurry, probably to report to his superiors. Hierarchy was etched deep into the minds of the people in the Magus world. Even if Leyland displayed his incredible battle might and terrifying talent, the one receiving him was merely a morning star. The real ruler of Sky City, His Majesty, the monarch of the skies, was still acting behind the scenes alongside with the other radiant moon. "You are a Lightwing," Leyland couldn't help but ask after seeing the white feathers behind this maid's back. "Yes, my lord." This maid was rather tall and slender. Her legs and body were perfectly proportionate, resulting in a smooth curve. The Lightwings were one of the winged races. They had an exceptional sensitivity to light elemental energy particles and usually had very good results when training in light-type high-grade meditation techniques. She seemed to be using a 3-level meditation technique. Of course, if she were of Boffel's level of strength, Leyland would be unable to identify her bloodline and specific meditation technique, as they were both at the Morning Star realm. "What's your name?" Leyland took a towel from the other party and wiped his hands as he asked in curiosity. "Euro, my lord." The Lightwing maid spoke as if in a hurry. Leyland's presence just put too much pressure on her, even if he intentionally withheld his energy undulations. "Accompany me outside." Since he had come to the place called the Cradle of Truth, how could Leyland miss a chance to go out? Besides, he had come as a guest. Boffel would be stupid to dare restrict his freedom. However, he was currently in someone else's territory. With Boffel being backed by the monarch of the skies, Leyland had to give him some face and bring the maid along. All right." Euro lowered her head deeply. As a maid of this villa, she obviously knew her duties. "Let's go." Leyland stretched before taking the lead. "Do you know where the Great Library is?" Leyland was most interested in this place. The information in his AI chip only came from the Ouroboros clan and what he'd gathered himself during his travels. Compared to the entirety of the central continent, that was like a drop in the ocean. The Sky City, however, was different. Not only was it the territory of the monarch of the skies, it was also the holy land of knowledge, the academic center of the entire central continent. The knowledge they had accumulated was bound to be at a terrifying level. How much would the AI chip grow after he acquired all of it? Knowledge was power among magi. This was no longer just a maxim and had instead become a fundamental truth. "The Great Library is beside the Sky Plaza. Would you like to go there, my lord?" Euro asked in a low voice. As she raised her head, Leyland's near-devilish handsomeness warmed her face. "Of course. I've long since been interested in the largest library in the entire central continent." There was a hint of worship in Leyland's tone. There was a thirst and worship of knowledge specific only to those who were keen to learn the truth. "Understood, my lord. Please come with me." Euro began to lead the way. Her long, soft hair came loose, occasionally floating above the feathered wings on her back, as if it were sitting on a gentle breeze. Leyland rubbed his nose and followed with a laugh. After heading out of the residential area, the shadows of conical buildings were seen as the buildings covered the glaring sun in the sky. There were plants growing beside the spotless streets. The bustling streams of people traveled back and forth, making Leyland feel like he had returned to his previous world. Genius seeing some of these structures, Leyland suddenly understood a fact. Sky City occupies a small region of land, but it has a burgeoning population. It's obvious that every bit of land here is expensive. The villa that I was allotted to was probably in the wealthiest region. In this place, nobody below the Morning Star realm can have such a luxury. There were streams of people on the streets, and practically all the different races in the central continent could be seen here. The Magi here possessed scholarly auras and were dressed in luxurious clothing, treating the others with respect. Through the influence of civilization, the behaviors of the residents of the city have evolved. Leyland exhaled deeply. Only a place like Sky City, which was under the protection of a monarch, could display such a moving scene. As Leyland had withdrawn his aura, he now seemed like the most ordinary of low-ranked magi bringing his maid out as he took a stroll. He did not attract any attention. As he was walking, he saw many Lightwings like Euro. Quite a few were dressed like servants, following behind magi. This made him observe Euro herself, and he found her to be lacking. Lights flashed in Leyland's mind. Euro's talent was nothing in Sky City, and if she truly wanted to stay here, she would need to rely on the Magi. Her best option was to become a servant. Of course, those who were already considered excellent amongst the Lightwings obtained a higher status. However, no matter how much status they could only remain as subordinates in front of their owners. This was rather uncomfortable, and feeling sorrow for their own kind living this way was understandable. Boom! There was a sudden explosion in the streets, and the place immediately turned chaotic. Leyland moved several steps backwards without leaving behind any marks, and Euro grew nervous as she looked around them. This intense energy wasn't targeting me, it seems to be a coincidence. Leyland thought. He had stepped backwards in order to avoid trouble and waved his hands to get the nervous Euro to back down. He then turned his attention to the scene. A group of white-robed magi with jeweled crowns on their foreheads and curved blades in hand were in a fight with another group of magi. These energy undulations. They are at rank 3, but they possess a frightening vitality. Not bad. Leyland easily saw through the veil that the magi had cast upon themselves. The white-robed magi had astoundingly high vitality. This was especially true of their leader, his curved blade launching terrifying glints of light as it forced the dark magi opposite them to withdraw. Leyland was rather interested in gaining information about tempering the body. Do conflicts like this happen often here? Leyland shot a glance at Euro. Euro shook her head. No, I've been here for decades, and this is only the 4th time such a thing is happening. The Sage Committee will react soon enough. They're already there. Leyland looked towards the sky, a smile on his face. Rumble, platinum flames flickered, forming a clump of light from which a Magus in platinum robes stepped forth. He looked extremely young, even childlike. However, the moment he arrived, a frightening energy swept across the area. Thud. The two groups of magi who were in a tussle were immediately blown backwards. The leader fell to his knees as his bones exploded under a suppressive force. Finally, he collapsed to the ground like a giant toad. Morning Star Domain. This little imp was actually a Morning Star Magus. And what's more, Sky City's first reaction to such an issue was to send a Morning Star to suppress it. Swish. In the meanwhile, even more magi dressed in Sky City's uniform had rushed to the scene. None of them was below the Hydro phase in terms of power, and all of them had a hardened, bloody aura and indifferent expression. With the suppression from a Morning Star as well as the arrival of a large group of elites, the two groups were immediately restrained. Even their seas of consciousness were bound as they were escorted away. Their heads hung low. Hee, as expected of Sky City, their strength is so great that they can send out such elite forces quite casually. Leyland envied them. Euro misunderstood his gaze. Seeing this lord watching the direction in which these magi were taken, she thought he might be wondering how they would be taken care of. They're done for. Since they dared create trouble in Sky City, people from both ends will be punished. At the very least, they'll be expelled, and they might even be forced into labor. She explained to Leyland in a low voice. Who are they? Leyland was not really interested in the state they would end up in. What he was more concerned about was the body-tempering spells that the Magi had used. Though it was merely a quick glance, Leyland could tell that their body-tempering methods were complete. If there was information for Morning Stars, then it would definitely be able to affect him to a certain extent. I don't know, but based on their attire, they should be people from the northern desert, Euro answered. Suddenly, she felt a chill in her body and looked around, realizing something had changed. Under the domain of a Morning Star, be it the Magi or the residents, they were all lying on the ground, too afraid to move. Actually, they couldn't move at all, and yet she was standing as if nothing had happened. She and Leyland seemed extremely out of place in this scene. Is this my lord's strength? After all, he's a Morning Star as well. The Magus floating in midair discovered this strange situation quickly. With a flash of platinum flames, the childish Morning Star appeared in front of Leyland. I never expected to see a lord here. Upon seeing Leyland, the arrogance on his expression was moderated. When the young man turned and saw Euro, recognition dawned in his eyes. I remember you. You're a maid in Boffel's villa. Yes, Lord Weyers. Euro knelt respectfully, making introductions. This is an important guest of Lord Boffel's, Lord Leyland Farlier of the Ouroboros clan. So it's you. The strongest Chemian warlock, someone who killed demon hunter Cyril right after advancing to Morning Star. Leyland could do little about this. As there was no obvious method of classifying Morning Stars, their reputation and achievements in battle had become their distinguishing characteristics. and what he was currently famous for was killing demon hunter Cyril. As for the title of strongest Chemian warlock in history, he had no idea how that had come about. It left him speechless. Lord Weyers became a morning star even before reaching 100 years of age. Even in the entire history of the continent, he's among the top hundreds. Before reaching 100, Leyland nodded in understanding. When someone advanced to become a Magus, they would permanently keep their original appearance. This fellow must have become an official Magus extremely early, and the following advances had helped him retain his looks. This was why he appeared this juvenile. It looks like he probably became an official Magus at 8 to 9 years old. What a demonic genius! Leyland's pupils shrank. When he was 8 to 9 years old, he probably didn't even know what a Magus was. To reach that level, one needs an astonishing aptitude, but that is not enough. There also need to be top-grade meditation techniques and expansive resources, as well as the mentorship of famous teachers. It looks like this Weyers has a great backing. Even as he wondered about such things inside, Leyland feigned shock. Lord Weyers is a rare genius in the continent. Morning stars like us can only blush with shame. Words of flattery were free of charge, and he specifically picked out the nicest words. As expected, a look of pride rose on Weyers' face. Face was something he had long since thrown into the drain. With this Magus, strength, talent, and backing, one could not show distaste on their face unless it was possible to kill him in one move and eliminate his backers. Leyland had nothing against him, and he began to assess his own strength. It was probably difficult to destroy Sky City, which was why his words of flattery were boundless. Even if they were merely pleasantries, it also depended on who was saying them. Weyers had been treated as a genius since he was young, and he had probably heard many compliments like this before. However, praises from morning star like Leyland evidently put him in a good mood. Of course not. If I, as I am now, were to be matched against Cyril, things might be slightly difficult. I quite admire Lord Leyland. Geniuses were perhaps the loneliest of people. Weyers had never had someone at a similar age to his who could speak to him as an equal. While Leyland was slightly older than he was, they were somewhat around the same age. Apart from being a warlock, Leyland had some reputation in potioneering too. Hence, Weyers felt like he had found a companion at the same age and began to converse with Leyland. "Haha, once this matter is over, I'll definitely drop by for a visit, Leyland." By the end of their conversation, Weyers had automatically dropped the formality of the Lord title, calling Leyland by name. It showed that they had gotten closer. Weyers and Leyland conversed for a long while as if nobody else was present. Whether it was the Magi on the ground or the other guards, nobody dared disturb them, and they could only wait pitifully. Of course, due to the power of the Morning Star domains, they could not hear the contents of the conversation between the two. All they knew was that this lord of theirs, who had always looked cold, seemed to be in a good mood. There were very few Magi who the Lord found to be pleasant company. The guard team was astonished, as they all snuck peeks at Leyland, before departing with Weyers.